Oh, banger.
From the guys who brought you Fight Night picks, and for a short time, hitting above the Mendoza line, comes the Allen Brothers' next project. Let's tear the cover off and join in 15-minute card breaks.
And Fight Night Picks is brought to you by Vertiball. Head on over to their website. It's vertiball.com. And listen, it's an awesome product. It's a local company out of New Brunswick, Canada. So make sure you support those guys locally as well as Fight Night Picks. But they're the only mountable portable muscle massager. They can stick onto any smooth surface. They've got an industrial strength suction cup. Can support over 100 pounds of pressure. You can get really into those deep knots. I have one here at home. I use it for my back and my shoulders from holding up that Fight Night Picks Pick'em trophy. But listen, make sure you check them out. It's a great product. Like I said, they're recommended by physiotherapists, masseuses, and chiropractors across Canada, the US, UK, and Australia. And they're used by countless professional athletes like Minka Fitzpatrick on screen there, as well as Clellan Farrell of the Raiders. So if you head into the cart, make sure you check them out. So I've got a Vertiball massager in my cart right there. Use the promo code FNP. You're going to save 10% off your order. You're supporting this company here that I'm very passionate about in New Brunswick, Canada, and you're helping out us as well. So make sure you check them out, vertiball.com, promo code FNP, 10% off your order. And without further ado, let's get into it.
Ladies and gentlemen, recorded in Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada. It's time for Fight Night Picks with your host, Craig and Matt Allen.
And welcome back to another episode of This Week in MMA, and what a card we have. I mean, this is big fight feels. This is what it's like in the main event at Bantamweight. You have the return of that little snake in the grass, TJ Dillashaw. He's coming back. It's clean juice season. It's a company that he owns, and he's coming back to take on One Tough Out and a former training partner of Corey Sandhagen. As always, one half your host into Craig Allen. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Craig Allen FNP. With me to my left, to your right, Matt Allen FNP. And if there's anybody out there that tuned in last weekend, you know that we went through some weird technical issues. Now, Matt, if I look at this computer right here,
It's looking good.
it looks like the lag is non-existent. So hopefully things work out very well today. But Matt, I'm really looking forward to it. There's a lot of people over there in the comment section. DT123 saying, y'all rats took all favorites. DT123. Hey, last weekend, great weekend. 8-2. The weekend before, I went 10-2. So I really don't care about the comment there. But listen, overall, it is a great card. And it's a really tricky one. And to really get into it even further, if I have a look at it, Matt, I have 1, 2, 3 that I have down as 50-50s. And there's a lot of really close fights on this one that don't totally tell the story. I love this card overall.
This is a really fun fight card, and this main event is as good of a Fight Night main event as you could possibly get. Like, I can remember the last Fight Night main event I was this excited for. It was Max Holloway versus Calvin Kattar, and that was all the way back in January. No disrespect to any of the other great main events or great events that we've had since then. It's just when you have a former champion coming back with all the controversy surrounding him against not only one of the most exciting guys in this division, but just a guy who stylistically I think will get into a very fun fight with a guy like TJ Dillashaw. I couldn't be more excited for this weekend.
So the Road Tree Resistance hit us up already in the Super Chat, supporting the boys, saying Fight of the Night is going to be hard to choose. Cheers from Spain. You know this show, and you know where we're going. Matt, let's throw it on over there. You hit us up in the Super Chat like that, you're going to get some love from the Fight Night Picks guys. Our first pick, Yanez Costa. How could you not go with that? It's such a great stylistic matchup. The boxing of Yanez, the overall wonkiness of the game of Randy Costa. I love this fight.
I'm going to give us a little bit of credit here, Craig, because this is the thing. MMA Twitter and these two guys took this fight from the prelims and put it on the main card. I don't know if we had anything to do with that, Probably not, but I do feel like this fight has the justified hype behind it. We have two of the most exciting and two of the easier to market guys in this division fighting off against each other. I know the UFC doesn't like to give us these like top tier prospect versus prospect fights, but this is gonna be one of those.
Yeah, I absolutely love this one. I mean, it should deliver. Both guys, they're giving off that fun vibe. Obviously, it's Reese's Pieces versus Dr. Pepper.
Two great snacks.
And I ultimately ended up getting the snacks myself. You didn't, but Matt, when we look at our second pick, and ooh boy, Clay hitting us up in the super chat with the 25, saying 5% of the extra money I made because y'all sold me on Morozov last week. That was a QMK parlay. That was half it. Morozov was there as an underdog. But Matt, Kyler Phillips, Raulian Paiva, I was excited about this fight going into the week. Now it's the co-main event. It feels like a showcase to me, but I still love this fight because Paiva can certainly bang at 125. And Phillips is going to bring a fight to anybody. I even think ranked guys are going to have a hard time with Kyler Phillips.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. The thing with Paiva is if we get the best version of him, like if we do get a 10-pound heavier, slightly more powerful version of the fighter we saw at 125, this fight should be absurd. But like you said, this does feel like a little bit of a showcase for Kyler Phillips. But the great news is, if there's one of those fights where Kyler Phillips is going to go into and like style on the other guy, it should be a fun fight. What Kyler showed in his last fight against Song Yadong too is he's not afraid to eat a shot and to give a shot. So even though he can be a very technical fighter, when he does just sort of devolve into a brawl, he'll still have a lot of success.
So I see a lot of people, and it was up there in the chat. It was mentioned by Mad Adam, 77% Sandhagen in the chat. It's at 77% right now. We figured, why not throw it out there to the chat, get your thoughts on this one, but we can only do it for one fight. So you get the main event right there. But if you pop on over to the Instagrams, at Fight Night Picks, I'm going to be reading off.
You can be a part of the show.
You can be a part of the show if you go vote over there. I put it up in the morning. We have the show, and then we go from there. We're also going to be talking about the odds because there has been some major shifts in the odds, namely in the first fight of the night. And what we do with Fight Night Picks, !kicks. Start down at the bottom, go all the way to the top. If you missed anything partway through, and this carries on for every other show, we go top to bottom or bottom to top one more time. Scott McCain saying, let's get into it, boys. It feels like a lot of people are feeling this one. And Laos Non saying, Jesus with sunglasses. Did you see his mom was the one that designed his suit?
No, I didn't. That's cool, though.
She is a fashion designer.
There
All
you
right,
go.
Matt. Flip it on down to the bottom. Diana Belbita taking on Hannah Goldy. I'll let you lead this one off. What are you thinking?
I gotta be honest, Craig, I don't have the highest opinion on this fight just because of the versions of both fighters that we've seen up until this point. And again, I know that I really talked about this a lot in our earlier prediction video, but we both thought Hannah Goldy was gonna look a lot better in that Granger fight. And I understand, Granger, slightly bigger, slightly rangier, but we did see both fighters supposedly kind of having the same strengths, and I really thought, okay, well, if Hannah Goldy can just kind of get on the inside of that range, then she should have success. The weird thing about Hannah Goldy is that, and I know this is the case for every MMA fighter, so just bear with me for a second, in the spots she's good at, she is very good at those spots, but there is just a lot of things that she does really need to work on. Like, when I look at Hannah Goldy, she's an extremely green MMA fighter. Do I think she can have a, I'll say, somewhat promising ceiling? I do, but I don't really think Hannah Goldy is some fighter who all of a sudden is going to become great at striking or great at jiu-jitsu and kind of become that specialist. She's always going to be a fighter who has to rely on her well-roundedness, and against someone like Belbita, it should be interesting. We saw Belbita get absolutely dominated by Jojua, and it really comes down to what is your opinion of like Miranda Granger and Luana Jojua, because they're not the greatest fighters to be having bad losses to. Personally, I'm still going with Hannah Goldy. I think her clinch control is going to be enough to win her rounds in this fight, at least minutes, and that's the thing. When I have to say that the reason you're going to win this fight is probably going to come down to your cage control offensively up against the cage, it means that, and I don't say this often, I don't think this fight's going to be one of those like back and forth barn burners. Again, ever so slightly favoring Goldy, but you could honestly tell me anything about this fight and I could believe you.
Max F over there in the chat saying, what's your stone cold lock for the card? You got Jordan Williams by knockout. I'll give you the !kicks parlay, Max F, and we'll see where that one goes. But when I look at this one, this is where I was going with it. The fact that the odds have changed so much during the week. I think when we did the prediction, Goldy was a slight favorite. If you look at it, Diana Belbita opened a plus 160. She's a minus 113 right now. Hannah Goldy opened a minus 195. She's a minus 106. I like the volume out of Hannah Goldy, so it is really tricky to go, okay, Goldy, volume, how's it going to work out in the clinch? In terms of the votes at Fight Night Picks, 51% Goldy, 49% Belbita. Over in the chat, I mean, what have we got? We're talking about Mickey Gall, Brett Z's talking about the main event. Laos Non saying wasn't much of a height difference at the stare downs. Phoenix saying Goldy has this for sure. Belbita is a can crusher. Belbita, former champion in kickboxing over in Europe. She's out of Romania, fighting now out of Canada. I have a hard time going with Belbita. I'm going to go with Goldy, but this is one of the ones that I've written down on my sheet. It's 50-50. I don't love it. If you've got a strong read on it, you can go either way. Clint's saying, did Goldy get injured or something? I saw somebody else say Goldy injury. I haven't seen anything about it, so if it's out there, it's out there. But again, it's one that I would leave off my card.
This fight to me is like a multiple choice question in elementary school. Whatever your first instinct was, just stick with it because it's probably the right one. You can go back and forth on this fight 10 different ways. You can say, oh, well, Belbita's gonna be able to take her down. You can look at this fight a lot of different ways. For me, again, I agree with you 100%. I just think the sort of steadfast game of Hannah Goldy is gonna be able to just be more consistent throughout these 15 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, as far as an injury, I can't find anything. Again, COVID was the issue. She was out of the fight against Jessica Penne, Matt. Our second fight on the card, we have Elise Reed making her UFC debut. She's going to be taking on one really tough out in Sijara Eubanks. And it's weird because you looked at the fight originally. Eubanks is going to be fighting at 135. Then she ends up with Elise Reed down at 125. Reed up from 115. So Eubanks, you have to think that the idea is, well, I already know how to fight, so let's focus on making the weight. She weighed in at exactly 125 pounds. Credit to her.
Exactly. You know what? Good, Craig. I'm glad we're actually taking this second. Good on you, Sijara Eubanks, because I'll call myself out, I thought that you were going to be one of the best fighters at 125, but your biggest problem was the scale, not your competition. I know she did not look good on the scale. You don't need me to tell you that. Anybody with two eyes can say that Sijara Eubanks is at least malnourished when she weighs in at 125, but the whole point is that she's going to be allowed to compete with other women who also weigh 125. Sijara Eubanks, as long as she's not in there with a really dangerous striker who might be able to take advantage of her, lack of durability with a big weight cut, then yeah, maybe they'll be able to hit her with a big shot, hurt her at 125, and maybe we'll see a different result. But if you look at the fighter who fought Roxanne Modafferi, who just went out there and, listen, Joe Rogan tried to sell Wolf tickets near the end of that fight. Oh, Eubanks is slowing down. A little bit, but she beat the brakes off of Roxanne Modafferi, who, listen, we might joke around about where her ceiling is or how she'll be remembered, but that's a good, gritty MMA fighter at the end of the day, and the fact that Sijara Eubanks beat the brakes off her on the feet and on the mat was really impressive to me. So it's nothing against her moving forward, especially Eubanks against these other levels of competition, but I really do think that as long as Eubanks can stay at 125 and make this weight comfortably, I think after this Elise Reed fight, she'll be able to stay around for a long time.
Todd O'Toole's question, what is Reed good at? Haven't seen a lot of tape. She's good at Taekwondo, really good, nice front kicks up the middle, and she'll go to the leg, to the body, to the head. She mixes things up really well.
And that's why I bring up the Roxanne Modafferi fight, actually, because Roxanne does, listen, I don't think she's as polished, I think that's fair to say, as Elise Reed with some of her strikes, but there is that sort of like wonkiness of trying to keep my opponent at range, and that's really why I do think Sijara Eubanks is going to fight a very similar fight to the one that she fought against Modafferi.
And when I look at this one, I mean, the votes at Fight Night Picks, again, over on the Instagrams, I got to go back a little bit. Boom, there we go. 71% with Eubanks to 29% Reed. I've seen a lot of people out there saying that Elise Reed should be a great underdog to go with. Maybe you do like her. You have a look at the odds. Elise Reed right now, more than a 3-1 underdog. She opened plus 190. She's a plus 311 right now. Sijara Eubanks, one of the bigger movers and shakers this week at a 46% clip. She opened a minus 225. She's a minus 408. Again, at best fight odds. The GOAT Ram is saying, hey guys, I want to say Conor McGregor is the GOAT. You joker. You joker. For me, yeah, I've got Sijara Eubanks. I think, again, you might like Elise Reed later in the second round if you get her live, or in the third if Eubanks is starting to slow down with some of the wrestling. You see that in a lot of her fights, even at 35. But I think at 125, I still really do like Sijara Eubanks in this fight. It's a clash of styles. I've seen Elise Reed be able to kind of flow with some of her grappling in the past, but it was against lesser competition. And I know Eubanks' record is salty as it gets at 500. But I do like Eubanks in this fight. Matt, we move into our next one. We have a great interview on this channel with Mr. Andre Ewell, with JHK and Andre Ewell. And the best part of it is, maybe look for him to change his nickname back. So look out for that one tonight. Maybe not going to be Mr. Highlight anymore. He said that was a little bit too much pressure to put on those performances.
That's fine. You know what? I like that he admitted that, honestly.
The funniest thing, we're cleaning up because we're going to move in a couple of months, and all my old notes were sitting on my desk. Look what note I found. Ewell versus Gutierrez. This is one of the things that I had written down getting ready for that fight. I said, Ewell with speed and movement will rotate on the side, the heel of his foot, flat-footed. And what happened in that fight? Well, I picked it wrong, but that did happen. For Andre Ewell, he throws those nice kicks. He's working out a Gracie Riverside Carlson. And he is a really tricky fighter to figure out. I said just tricker because he's tricky. But the thing that he does well, boxing from long range, unless you can crash that distance. He's taking on Julio Arce, who's a great fighter. Todd O'Toole hitting us up in the super chat with the $5. And Andrew above saying Julio Arce, he defeated Ige. Clint saying, yo, Julio is the lock. Matt, what are you thinking in this one? I think it's a tricky one. MPTV saying, is Julio Arce going to be the same after double elbow surgery? He's been out for what? 2 years or so? 2019?
He's been out for a meaningful amount of time, and that's why this matchup's so interesting, because I can oversimplify this fight in a very easy manner. If Andre Ewell keeps space, he's going to win this fight. If Julio Arce can close that distance, he's going to win this fight. And I really do think it's as black and white as that, because I always bring up this term when I talk about Andre Ewell's game. It's the Goldilocks zone. When there's scientists looking for other planets out there that might have life on them, they look for this zone around every sun, where it's not too hot, but not too cold. It's that nice little space where life can form. Andre Ewell has a Goldilocks zone with his striking, where it is, I'm good at catching my guys on their way in, but it is weird, because with Andre Ewell, he does have that wide open stance, kind of like Wonder Boy, but he's not active in that stance. It's the one weird thing from Ewell. I like his boxing, and I do like him in some moments, but the problem with Andre Ewell is, even go back, watch any of his fights. Andre Ewell's weird. He'll win big moments in rounds, but it's very rare that Andre Ewell goes out there and outclasses his opponent for 5 minutes. Like, he's a fighter who has that one thing that he's good at, but once you do get past that plan A, he doesn't really have a plan B. Look at his last fight against Gutierrez. That leg gets chopped up. Does he ever go to wrestling? Well, not really. Does he just keep on standing at range and keep trying to box? Yeah, and that's fine, but you always need something else to go to, and that's just not something Andre Ewell has. It's not that Julio Arce is a guy like Dan Ige, and honestly, I don't think he has the ceiling of a guy like Dan Ige. I know he has the win over him, and listen, maybe that's a rematch that, listen, I know Craig would love to see that one day, but I really do think Julio Arce, he can at least mix it up enough to beat Andre Ewell. I think he's got the good calf kicks. I think he's a guy who will go to the clinch to wear his opponent out. And I do think those are all really important things when you're fighting a guy like Andre Ewell. Ewell will have that one chance, kind of a la Dwight Grant, to catch my opponent coming in with a big power shot. But other than the one big shot, I really don't know what Andre Ewell can do to win this one.
He has those nice shovel hooks from the outside. He doesn't throw a lot of kicks, really doesn't. And obviously we see him accepting position when he gets taken down too. He's one of those guys that when he ends up on his back, it's the old, now we can't call it that, we got to find a new one, but the old Louis Smolka effect. Now, Matt, there's almost 500 people tuning in, 68 likes. Takes 2 seconds. The super chat's already been hit up. We appreciate that. Phoenix saying, I've got Andre in this bout. Wouldn't be surprised if it's a split, though. I do see this one being really close. Matt, read out those votes. Look at that.
Oh, wow. So we've got Andre Ewell is at 51% of our total votes, and Julio Arce is at 49. That's wild.
Over at Fight Night Picks. Now, Julio Arce, when we talked about this fight originally, was a decent favorite. He's about where he was before. He opened a -180. He's a -202 right now. Andre Ewell opened a +155. He's a +168. So if you can make a really good case for Andre Ewell, a good point's brought up over there in the chat by Pablo Cruz saying Ewell lost the 3rd round to Erwin Rivera. He kind of will slow down too, gets taken down. Some of the things I worry about. I'm fine with the work rate of Julio Arce. That's why I like him in this one.
Just look back at the Marlon Vera fight. And listen, I know Marlon Vera is one of the better fighters in this division, but it's like, okay, we're close through the first round, we're close through the second round, and then the second, the third round comes, Marlon Vera is like, oh, you have no cardio whatsoever. And Marlon Vera can stay the exact same fighter in that third round, where we see Ewell kind of fall off a cliff. So for Ewell, again, I think that there's going to be fun fights out there for him, and I really do feel like he's one of those 50-50 fighters to where he can land a big shot on anybody, and he's susceptible to getting hit by a big shot. But if I'm just picking a fight off a skill set, I have to pick Julio Arce.
Prince Vegeta's son saying nice toss-up is good, though. And that's it. There are a lot of toss-up fights on this one, Matt. Our next one, we have Mickey Gall taking on the man himself, Jordan Williams. Matt, for Jordan Williams, he was the guy that was taking, like, weird, different prescription insulin because he had diabetes. It was a sad story. He ends up in the UFC. He fights Nassourdine Imavov, who's going to be on this card as well. Loses. And now he's here, and we're taking on Mickey Gall, and I've heard some really weird things this week about Mickey Gall. I don't know when he's become this mythical figure, other than the fact that he rung off those 3 really big wins to start his UFC career, but since then it hasn't been all that great. Now, we talked about it in the original prediction video. The fact that Mickey Gall had a great corner and a great camp for this one, training with Matt Brown, getting ready for a striker and Jordan Williams, guy that can mix it up a lot. Throws with a lot of power, maybe not the most volume. You want to see a good Jordan Williams fight at 170. He fought Kazula Vargas. It's a lot of fun to go back and watch. Now, when I look at this one, Mickey Gall has the jiu-jitsu as his bread and butter. Gets a little bit labored in some of his takedown attempts from long range, and for those reasons, I like Jordan Williams. But again, with It Could Happen 21, friend of the show, you're here every single week, and over on the Instagrams, being a lock, I'm a little scared of it that way.
Why do people think Mickey Gall's good at striking? This is an honest question that I have, because this is something that MMA fans do and I don't get, and I know I do it too. I look at a guy's history as a wrestler or their history as a kickboxer, and I assume that that's what they're going to do in the cage. People thought, oh, well, Mickey Gall, he's training with Cowboy now. He's training with your favorite kickboxer who smokes cigarettes, Joe Schilling. And they were like, oh, wow, his boxing's going to take this big leap. His boxing's not good. Like, he dropped Sage Northcutt back when they were both basically kids. Like, they were younger than I currently am, which is wild for me to think about. And Mickey Gall's striking has never gotten better since then. Look back at the George Sullivan fight. George Sullivan was an awful UFC fighter. I'm sorry, George, if you're watching, but, like, it just never really worked out for him. And he was one of those guys where, when you look at his record, he lost to a lot of guys who either went on to be in the UFC, or he was, like, the first fight of a guy who went on to be pretty good. But Mickey Gall beat him, and it wasn't even a competitive fight. And then I thought, okay, he's finally beat a decent UFC fighter, or at least a guy who's been around a little bit. Then we'll see him take off. He never did. Like, Randy Brown is a great fighter. I don't expect you to beat him. But you weren't even competitive with Randy Brown. Okay, Diego Sanchez, the next sort of competitive, we're going to see how good you are. You don't do well in that fight. You had a bad weight cut leading into that, which is weird because you at one point openly talked about moving down to 155 pounds. So that's the thing with Mickey Gall. There are so many questions around him. At the end of the day, though, I like his jiu-jitsu. I think his wrestling's okay, but not great. And I don't think those two things are enough to beat a guy like Jordan Williams. I really do think Mickey Gall is a victim of his own hype, and it's not even his fault. The UFC tried to build him into becoming this, like, mythical, like, oh, wow, he's going to be a top 10, top 5 kind of guy. It just didn't work out. And, hey, sometimes it doesn't work out. I just don't think Mickey Gall's the guy who we were once promised he was going to be. And for all those reasons, I like Jordan Williams. I like his power. I like his takedown defense. And I do think that if this is just a striking match, Jordan Williams is going to absolutely destroy Mickey Gall.
68% of the fans at Fight Night Picks have Jordan Williams to get the win. 32% going with Mickey Gall. And when we go over to the odds, Mickey Gall is the underdog. You open a plus 130s, plus 148 for Jordan Williams. He's somewhere around a minus 177 where we're at right now. I like Jordan Williams ever so slightly, but listen, I'm not married to that pick. It's not one that I love the most. It's not the one that I'm going to go with on the fight or the question mark kicks parlay. So how about that? What do you think?
I mean, I like him to beat Mickey Gall. I don't think the odds are that bad on it. I don't think Mickey Gall's a UFC caliber fighter. He just got brought. It's true. Like, we can't say no, though. Like, the term wouldn't be a term if that wasn't a case. Like, he just got brought up too quick. There's not a lot of guys who only have one amateur fight and then get brought into the UFC. It's almost unheard of. He got rushed. If there was, like, a G League for UFC fighters, then it would be perfect for Mickey Gall. He could be like the Pascal Siakam, go down to the G League, be really good, let his skill set develop, and then let him go up to the big show. He got brought out too soon. It's not his fault. It just sucks to see because I really do think Mickey Gall at one point was something special.
You've got SAPT who likes Williams here. Matt, we'll move on to our next fight. We have Nassourdine Imavov. And somebody was out there in the chat, and Pablo Rivera, you're a great guy. See you later, pal. But when I look at this one, you've got Nassourdine Imavov, Ian Heinisch, totally different styles. Imavov likes to strike from the outside. He's wonky on his way in with his entries. He will switch his stance a little bit. But I'm worried, again, about that pick that I put up in the prediction video. And somebody said, oh, he just broke a finger. There was a French documentary on it. But when I put out the individual video, I didn't notice there's two pictures there that he posted. There was one after he's sitting in the, in the chair, and he's got the IV on him, and his arm's all taped up. I clicked onto the second one. He broke the bone in his hand right there. So before it connects to your finger eventually, it was broken. So then I look at that, and he's an orthodox fighter, and it was his right hand. That's enough to scare me away. I get it. It's about, 3 months ago? How much training are you doing? How much punching are you doing with your right hand when you break that? You're taking on the man himself, and a great point by PayPal Money DFS. Sean hitting us up in the Super Chat saying LFA is basically UFC's G League, LOL. I agree with you. But Ian Heinisch is such a good wrestler. He can just wrestle and wrestle and wrestle. And we even saw Imavov. He was able to pop back up against Phil Hawes to the point where Hawes just wrestled himself into exhaustion at the end of it. But I think Ian Heinisch, I've seen it time and again, where if he goes to that well rather than strike, he has a lot of success. I like Ian Heinisch in this one quite a bit.
Phil Hawes fought the fight like Ian Heinisch would fight the fight. Like, it was weird. You would think, okay, Phil Hawes can at least try to head kick him once, but it was a weird fight because Phil Hawes fell off a cliff at the end of it, and Imavov did make it interesting as the fight progressed. And that's the thing about Ian Heinisch. I don't know if he has good cardio or bad cardio. And I know I'm the guy who has openly said I think Paulo Costa has good cardio, all things considered, because this is the thing that matters. People just look at the round and they go, oh, they have bad cardio. Output matters. And with Paulo Costa, like, he can throw a crazy amount of output, and yeah, he'll get tired because of it, but at least he had the output to begin with. With Ian Heinisch, he has like good output. I wouldn't say it's great. I wouldn't say it's like the top 5 in the division, but he's a guy who can at least go out there and outlast his opponent. The weird thing about Heinisch is that he can do it with his striking and with his wrestling. The only pushback I will give to you is I do think we'll see Ian Heinisch strike quite a bit in this fight. Just go back to the Gerald Meerschaert fight. You want to talk about Bangkok ready and someone who completely changed their style? Like, that's what Ian Heinisch did, and I really do feel like when he fights other guys who aren't in that, like, Kelvin Gastelum range, then he will be able to open up with his striking a little bit more. Look at the Derrick Brunson fight. Ian Heinisch looked good against Derrick Brunson for at least the first round, and I understand people like to hate on Derrick Brunson, but Derrick Brunson is a legit top contender in the middleweight division, whether you like to watch him or not. Ian Heinisch had a competitive fight with him, and I think that's more than enough to get a win over a guy like Nassourdine Imavov.
The comment section over there, gotta hit it up. Matt Adams saying the injury could cause him some issues. Clint saying the dude in the GSP shirt. Well, that's just up to MD saying the dude with the GSP shirt needs to lift some weight.
I do.
Jesus. We got another super chat for $10. The super chat's going insane so far. Skater Forever 12341 saying who broke their hand finger. Put it in the video. It was Imavov. Imavov so far, and it's such a small sample size, but in the UFC, incredible in terms of his strikes landed per minute and his striking defense. He is a great, great striker. You've got Heinisch, who has a lot more experience. He's just below the average at middleweight in terms of what he puts out for output, just below or better, if that's the way that you want to put it, in terms of his defense. But it's really the wrestling. If he's able to enact it, I think that's going to be the thing that makes the difference. Matt, I'd get Ian Heinisch in this one. The votes, let's go with them. 63% Heinisch, 37% for Imavov. Heinisch at a minus 160 is the first leg of the question mark kicks parlay. I'm going with Heinisch in that one. I like him that much, but I absolutely love this fight. I think it should be great. The Manly channel saying you guys are awesome. Love question mark kick show to pass the time before the fights. I think it would be a lot of fun. When this fight takes place. Matt, our next one, Punahele Soriano taking on Brendan Allen. Seems like we've had a little bit of a different view on this fight than a lot of people have. Matt, for Punahele Soriano, the big lefty southpaw, and this guy can crack, is also a great wrestler. That's what makes it interesting and tough for Brendan Allen, and I've seen a lot of support for Punahele Soriano. Let's throw it on over to the votes. 55% Soriano, 45% Allen. What are you saying over in the comments section? Who do you have in this one? Allen, or are you going Soriano? Because I've seen that Soriano support this week.
I feel like a lot of people think that Soriano is like a Sean Strickland type character who can go out there, defend takedowns with his movement, and then pile it on with volume. I don't think he's that type of a fighter. I understand people like to bring up his wrestling background, but I'm a big what have you done for me lately kind of guy, and he has never shown wrestling in his MMA career. At least I shouldn't say that. He's never shown the top level wrestling that we keep on hearing about. And the thing about a guy like Brendan Allen is that he only needs one takedown, and it's not just the wrestling. It's the jiu-jitsu of a guy like Brendan Allen. The weird thing, though, is that Allen does like to throw that body kick all of a sudden, and that body kick will leave him open for some of the overhand strikes of Soriano, but I really do feel like it's the well-rounded skill set of a guy like Brendan Allen against that one-punch power of Soriano. And I understand the one-punch power and the takedown defense, they're sort of married together. You can't have one without the other. But if we're just basing this off skill sets, I think Brendan Allen's the much more skilled fighter. I really do. Do I think he's the more hittable fighter? Yes, I do. And do I think Soriano has a lot more power? Yes, I think all three of those things are true. But with Brendan Allen, when he gets guys on the ground, he wraps them up in a way that we don't normally see. Like, think about Kyle Dawkins and Kevin Holland. Those guys are pretty good at grappling, right? I think we can all agree those guys are good grapplers. He out-grappled those guys, and that's a really important thing. Like, it matters who you beat and how you beat them. It's something we talk about a lot. You can look at someone's record and, yeah, they knocked out 11 people in a row in the first round, but if all those people were like 0-0 and there were a bunch of wrestlers who had never even trained in striking, then who cares? Brendan Allen goes out there, and legit takes down and submits a lot of really top level fighters. Even just go back and watch the Tom Breeze fight. I know Tom Breeze can be hit or miss, but just the way he was able to dominate him near the end of that first round was important. I understand a lot of people are confident with Soriano, and honestly, I don't have any 50-50 fights circled or anything. I've got no paper in front of me, but this is a 50-50 fight. I see it either Brendan Allen wins this by absolutely dominating him on the mat and it's not even close, or Soriano lands that one big punch a la Dusko Todorovic and it's all over.
And I mean, over in the chat, Todd saying, can Soriano maintain the pace he pushed versus Todorovic? That's the big thing. MPTV saying strength of schedule for Allen will carry him. SAPT has Puna. There's a lot of people that like Punahele Soriano. Dan is also saying Puna has the judo background too. It's not going to be so easy for Allen to hit the switch takedowns. That's the thing. I mean, for Punahele Soriano, he went 0 for 1 in his takedowns against old Dushko. He went 3 of 4 against Jamie Pickett. He was able to get Oscar Piata down. Oscar Piata in the UFC. Yikes. Cage Warriors hype train. See you later. Punahele Soriano open as a minus 220 favorite. He's a minus 115 right now. Brendan Allen opened as a plus 185. He's now at a minus 105. This is one of my 50-50s over in my notes because I have a really hard time with this one. That's why I set it up this way. So don't go with my pick on this one is pretty much what I'm saying. I don't have the most of the confidence on it. I ever so slightly have Brendan Allen still because I want to stick with my guns. But yeah, I do like Punahele Soriano a lot.
So Brendan Allen's been training at Sanford MMA for his last couple of camps, and I really do feel like in the Carl Roberson fight, we saw a jump in his striking. Now, yes, it was a very small jump, but we at least showed... I should rephrase this. He at least showed more confidence in his striking. I really do think that matters. Like, people write basketball books just based about, like, I was only good in the league because I was confident taking shots. And the fact that Brendan Allen has gotten more confident with his striking means that he's going to be more confident closing the gap for his takedown attempts. And that was the one little area that he did struggle with. He's not a bad striker and he's not a bad wrestler. He's bad at that weird, like, okay, how do I strike my way into the clinch? I do feel like the more time with Sanford MMA is going to really help him round out that part of his game. Guys like Henry Hooft are really, really smart, really good at putting game plans together. I feel like Brendan Allen's going to be able to win this one, but again, this is one of those, like, could go either way. I don't see this going to a decision. I guess I'll throw that one out there.
Yeah, I mean, hey, you talk about that connection. Heinisch now at Sanford MMA, Brendan Allen and Randy Costa. And Matt, Randy Costa, let's talk Costa. This is one of our 2 picks for fight of the night. I absolutely love this fight. Adrian Yanez, he was on the channel. He showed his disdain for the return of TJ Dillashaw months and months ago. That interview from back in December. Randy Costa switching up gyms, going to the one and only Sanford MMA. Like we said, training with some great guys. I mean, Matt, we've even seen Rafael Fiziev in some of the pictures over there. That's only going to help you, especially for a fight like this, with Yanez training out of Metro Boomin Metro Fight Club. And man, his boxing's insane. His head kick against poor Victor Rodriguez, insane. One of the worst fighters we've seen in the UFC. But Yanez, I mean, even looked great and had the staying power against Gustavo Lopez. I love that that fight went into the 3rd round. I love that I've seen him in 5-round fights before. Randy Costa's strength of schedule coming into the UFC was abhorrent, but he's winning in the ways that you wanted to see him win. And even in the Brandon Davis loss on super short notice, he gained stock in that one.
Without a doubt. Like, Randy Costa is one of those guys, and listen, I'll throw both of us under the bus. We brought that up a lot. Like, oh, strength of schedule, strength of schedule. Didn't matter in his first 2 UFC fights. He looked great. And the thing about Randy Costa, too, is his striking is unorthodox to a point. Like, he just moves stances so fluidly. He can switch while he throws combinations. Like, he's a tricky fighter because he is kind of unique in the way that he strikes. It's not like anything he does is so unorthodox. It's just the way he puts his combos together can be. And when he does get his punches and his kicks together, that's when he's a really dangerous fighter. Brandon Davis forced him to just become a boxer, and you saw he was still having some success against Brandon Davis in the boxing exchanges, but when he gets all that space, that's when he can really have success. And against a guy like Adrian Yanez, that's where this fight comes down to. I only care if Adrian Yanez can check calf kicks in this fight.
And that's what Joe's saying. Love Costa's kicks over there in the chat.
Because if Yanez can check calf kicks, or at least find a way to respond, a la when Poirier fought Justin Gaethje and he figured out, okay, every time Gaethje throws an inside leg kick, if I just step on my check and force a left hand down the middle, I'm going to crack him on the chin eventually, and that's how he ended up beating him. If Yanez can either answer the kicks of Costa with punches and close the distance to the point where I'm going to make this a boxing fight so we don't even care about the kicks, then I do think Yanez is going to have success. This is the only thing that I'm going to throw out there, though. If Costa can get his kicking game going, and if we do see Yanez start to slow down from either some of the body or the leg kicks of Costa, I do think Costa can win this fight in the 3rd round. I think he can stop Yanez, too. This is the other thing about this fight. I don't think either guy's going to win by decision. I think someone's getting stopped in this one because this is the thing about Adrian Yanez. We've seen Costa get cracked before and go down, but I don't think he's ever fought someone with the hand speed of Yanez. I will admit that he might have fought guys who can hit harder than Adrian Yanez, but the thing about Yanez isn't just that he hits you really hard, it's that he hits you on when you don't think you're going to get hit, and he is absurdly fast. Speed kills in MMA, and that's why I have to pick Adrian Yanez.
Kyle Kelly saying congrats on the 26K subs. I remember back below 1,000 watching the Cage Warriors preview at the start of the pandemic where we had Darren Stewart to beat Bartosz Fabinski. But you know what? That's a great spot to bring up because, hey, we just had a new video launch on our second channel. It's 15-minute card breaks. It started with breaking some UFC cards, the Panini Prisms. We just opened some Donruss Football 2020 and Matt in here.